probably heard me say this before. We was brought up on a strict political diet of Skinner, Scargill and Tony Benn. That's what you listened to in our house. My dad was a coal miner. All my uncles were coal miners. My granddads, great-granddads, everybody worked down the pit. And all the women worked in the factory. And the pit, when my dad worked out in our village, 3,000 people, all the men in the village worked at the pit, all the women worked in the factory. With the pit came a rugby team, a football team, a cricket team, a sports team, a brass band, a bandstand, a sports and social club, a welfare, a sports ground, rugby pitches, you name it, our village had it. It had all that with one coal mine. That was our community. Now, when the coal mines were taken away from us, when they were closed, everything went overnight. The sports pitches went, the welfare went, the pubs went, the football, the rugby, the cricket, the tennis, the bowls, everything went overnight. So whole villages across the Midlands, Notts and the North just stopped talking to each other overnight. And that was the big thing for our communities. You know, we just didn't see each other anymore. And we had to blame somebody. And the person we blamed was Maggie and the Tories. They shut the pits. Labour shut more pits, by the way. But the coal industry was coming to an end. And you've got to realise that a lot of our families had probably been in the pits for 100, 150 years. That was it. It was passed down. It was in your blood. It was in your DNA. I used to sit at the dinner table at night time listening to my dad telling me stories of his shift down the pit with all these characters that he worked with down the pit, like Taffy and Jock and all these names. And I used to dream of working with these people because they were funny characters. And just a few years later, I was working with these people underground. So it was that what was taken away. It was that sense of community and belonging and an industry which you're born into. If I'd have been born in Sheffield, I'd have probably been a steel worker. If I'd have been born in Liverpool, I'd have been a docker. If I'd have been born in Grimsby, I'd have probably been a fisherman. But I was born in North Notts and I was a coal miner. It was as simple as that. And that was taken away from us. I understand now why it was taken away from us, because we had a situation where nationalised industries were losing a lot of money. The unions were holding the country to ransom. But you know what, when it affects you directly, you don't always see that. You just think you're being picked on by a nasty Tory government, and that's why we dislike Maggie with a passion. But I'll probably come on to later in this session why I actually forgave Maggie. You can ask me later, or I can tell you now if you want me to.
If you want to, go on.
So obviously we hated Maggie. I joined the Labour Party. I was on the picket line with my dad in 84 in the strikes. And then I went on to work down the coal mines with my dad for many years. And then when I came out of the pits, I did about 10 years working for Citizens Advice Bureau in Ashfield. I loved that job. I was trying to fix people's problems. But then after that, after working in the homeless hostels for young people, I worked for a Labour MP. I was canvassing, campaigning in 2017. And this old guy on the marketplace smoking a fag. And Gloria, who was the MP at the time, Gloria Di Piero, she went to ask him which way he voted. And he wouldn't tell her. He's about 80, I think. And she came back to me and she said, he won't tell me which way he votes, Lee, but he used to work at the pit. Go and have a word with him. You might be able to get it out of him. So I went to speak to him. And it turned out that at some stage we'd worked at the same pit, so he opened up to me, and eventually he admitted to voting Conservative. And I said to him, why do you vote Conservative? Miner for 45 years, live in this area, it's a strong Labour area, why do you vote Tory? He says, well, in the early 80s, he says I was married, got a couple of kids, my kids went to local comp. He says I worked at the local pit, my missus worked at the factory. And he says I had one of those what's it all about moments. You know, why are we here? Why are we on this earth? What is our function? What is our role in life? He says I've got hardly any money, working 5 days a week down a coal mine in a job that I disliked. My missus were doing an odd job. We got could barely afford to clothe our kids. We lived in a council house. And he just thought to himself, what's it all about? I feel pretty worthless. And, as a human being to feel worthless. An hard-working man, a coal miner, to feel worthless is incredibly sad to me. It's incredibly sad. He says, and then Maggie came along, and she said to me and thousands of others around the country that you are a decent man, you are a decent family, you're hard-working, you're aspirational, you do the right thing. What I'm going to do for you and thousands of other people is allow you to buy your house at a discount. And he did. He worked 7 days a week. His missus put the overtime in. He saved his house. He saved his money. Bought his house. He says, and now when I sit on my settee and look out my new patio windows, which I bought myself, he says I look at my fish pond and my greenhouse and my fence, which I've just creosoted myself, and that's all mine. He says, and when I die and go to heaven, he says my life would not have been worthless. I've got something to leave to my children and my grandchildren. I thought, my goodness, that's the most powerful story I've ever heard from a human being. One woman had made his life worthwhile. She gave him something. She gave him a hand up, not a handout. She gave him a stake in society. And that was my road to Damascus moment. And I thought, no other politician ever done that for a working man or woman in this country.